I'd like to introduce our next session. It will be led by Rajiv Pershwaria, CEO and Executive Director of iCliff, who's here to share some insights that's based on this research. So please join me in welcoming Rajiv.
Thank you. Let's do this one more time. Good morning. Much better, much better. It's only 11:25, folks. All right, good. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the future of leadership based on what I've learned over the years along with my colleagues, but just a little bit about me before I get started. I spent 22 years in companies like this, working in 8 countries, 14 cities, and then decided to call it a day from the corporate world. And what I do now is a combination of 2 things. I head up a not-for-profit all the way in Asia that does research and combining the best thinking of the East and West when it comes to leadership and governance. And I also run my own little company out of Seattle, Washington, where we do the same thing. I have 3 babies that were born at 30,000 feet. And today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the blue one, open source leadership. And I do a whole bunch of writing for different media as and when I get the time. So that's a little bit about me. Once upon a time, we all lived in the village. We were either farmers or we were artisanal producers, and everything that we produced, we sold to our little village. We hardly left the village. Everybody knew us in the village by name, by home, where we lived. If we were farmers, we lived on the farm. Everybody chimed in. In that sense, because everybody knew us at this time, we were totally exposed to the extent of being naked. Meaning you did one bad thing to anybody, the whole village knew, and then it was impossible for you to do business with anybody. So that's how exposed and naked we used to be, because everybody in the village knew everybody. Then comes the first industrial revolution. And now we've invented the railroad and the earliest factories. And for the first time, there is distance between us where we live and where we work. Earlier, we all used to live and work at the same time. We were totally exposed and naked. Now we are commuting to work, and there is distance between us and our customer as well. And we're beginning to get a little bit invisible, because not all our customers know who we are. Yeah? So that's the first industrial revolution for you. Then comes the second industrial revolution, and now we've invented the automobile and the airplane and telephone and telegraph, etc. We've given birth to large factories. The distance between us and our customer is increasing. We are becoming more invisible. Remember, in the village, we were totally exposed. We are now becoming more and more invisible. And the distance between our home and our work is also increasing. We've given birth to large factories. We've all heard of Peter Drucker and are very familiar with his great teachings. But how many of you have heard of Frederick Taylor? A few of you have. He was the precursor to, if you will, to Peter Drucker in terms of being the father of modern management. And so he helped Henry Ford in building modern management concepts. His idea about management and people was that people are inherently lazy, and therefore to get productivity up, you need to control them and you need to whip them. That was modern management at the time, if you will. Okay, so all of management and leadership was built to maximize control. Hence came the punch card. Hence came management by objectives, right? The whole idea of management and leadership is control, control, control. Peter Drucker legitimized employee concerns a little bit. So we started talking about employee engagement surveys and employee well-being, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at it, much of management is still designed to maximize control, isn't it? And that's what was happening all the way this time as well. And now comes the third industrial revolution. We've now invented biotechnology, nuclear energy, etc. Work and business has now become truly global. The distance between us and our customer is now huge. We are totally invisible, still pre-internet, so we are totally invisible, and we are commuting large distances to go to work. Yeah? But what is the focus of leadership and management? Still control, control, control. Yeah? So that's the third industrial revolution for you. And then we come to the present times, to the fourth industrial revolution. Everybody is talking about this side of digital disruption. there are three things that make digital disruption successful. One is, what disruptive business model should we come up with? And every company and every individual is maniacally focused on that. Let's find the disruptive business model, right? Second, what technology platforms should we invest in? Everybody is focused on finding the right technology platform. But there's a third element of success to digital disruption, and that is, how must people management and leadership practices change in today's all-digital world? And nobody is, or rather much less attention is being paid to this one. Now raise your hand if you believe that life has changed dramatically, both at home and at work, just in the last 7 to 8 years. Everybody? Raise your hand if you believe that large companies are keeping up with that pace of change when it comes to their management and people leadership practices. Now that's exactly why I wrote the book Open Source Leadership. So the idea is, with all of this happening, what has changed on the people and workforce front? What are the implications to personal leadership? What are the implications to organizational or enterprise leadership? We need to think differently about these two things, isn't it? And that's what I'd like to spend the next 20 minutes sharing with you, as much as time would allow me to do today. Okay? So here's what's changing very quickly. Full-time employment has given way to free agency. 40% of the US workforce, by some estimates, is already a free agent. By definition, free agents have a lot of freedom in terms of when to work, when not to work, how much to work, how little, how much, etc. Ordinary people are more empowered today than ever before in human history. Why? Because we all carry in our pockets a WMD, a weapon of mass destruction. Why is this a WMD? Because I can destroy anybody's reputation on social media with real or with fake news. It doesn't really matter, right? So think Arab Spring. We bring down regimes with this stuff. This is how powerful ordinary people are. Leaders and organizations, on the other hand, are totally exposed and naked. Every single word, every single action of an individual leader or an organization is out in full view. On the one hand, we ordinary people are empowered. On the other hand, large corporations and big leaders are naked. That's the big difference. I don't need to tell you about speed, speed, and speed. It's all about speed these days. We've reached a time of permanent beta. I don't need to tell people here in California, you guys have 8 beta stores. Anybody been to a beta store? How many of you are from California? I live in Asia. Okay, so there are 8 of them here. You've been to one of them, right? You can walk into the store and they sell products which are still in the beta stage. You walk in, but as soon as you walk in, they tell you, we're going to videotape you. And as you spend more time in product A versus product B, what questions you ask, how you play with the product, all that is taped and sent back to the manufacturer so they can improve their product. There is no such thing as a perfect product anymore. You get it to 80%, you launch it. By the time it gets anywhere near 100%, it's outdated already. Work in business has now become totally global. Here's the big difference. Remember, I started off by saying that we were in the village and everybody knew everybody and therefore we were naked? We are back in the village, except that the village is global. And you are now 2 clicks away from being found out from anything. So the distance between us and our customer has collapsed again. The distance between home and work has virtually disappeared again. We are back to being naked in the global village. Back to the future. That's what's happening. And finally, amazing opportunities and daunting challenges coexist. With a high-speed connection, the opportunities to make money or to change the world, amazing. With a high-speed connection, you can start a movement to do great things also. At the same time, the planet is facing challenges like never before. We are 7.2 billion people today, going up to 10 billion by 2060. Can you imagine the challenges associated with that? Food, wellness, health, water, communal harmony are just a few of them. Climate change, just a few of them. So whether you want to exploit the opportunities or you want to address the challenges to leave the planet safer for the next generation, either which way, we're going to have to upgrade our thinking. That's the point here. So what do we do about that? That's the next point. The first three industrial revolutions, as I said, they reduced the dependence on human labor, increased information, initially destroyed jobs and industries, but eventually created a lot more jobs than they destroyed. The first three industrial revolutions. The question is, will the fourth be the same? And the answer is yes and no. We believe that we will continue to reduce dependence on human labor. We will continue to increase the precision of information. Whether more jobs will be created or not, the jury is still out. The experts are divided. My personal view is eventually the fourth industrial revolution will also create more jobs. Why do I say that? Try hiring a data scientist today. Can't find them. Try hiring a digital marketing expert today. Can't find them. Jobs of tomorrow are not even created yet. In 5 years or less, we're going to have so many body part implants in our body that will require servicing. Just like you drive your car into the garage and change your battery today, the person changing your battery is not an engineer, right? He or she is a mechanic, correct? Similarly, somebody who opens you up and replaces a valve is not going to be a doctor. They're going to be a medical technician. And that job has not yet been created. So eventually, after a lot of disruption, I believe that lots of jobs will be created. So that will remain the same. But what is good leadership will differ. And the separation between home and work is gone. The distance between us and our consumer is gone. So in this background, let's quickly look at what personal leadership looks like. What it should look like going forward in this era of total openness where there is nowhere to hide. Let's first start with how we have misunderstood leadership all along so that we can understand it correctly. For hundreds of years, we have confused followership as leadership. Raise your hand if you're a parent. Don't we love our kids when they listen to us and obey? And we teach them how to follow instructions, right? When they're this small, right at that age, they realize that there is an authority figure called parent. If I want to do well in life, I better listen to what they say. Now the kid goes to school. Who is the teacher's pet in a classroom anywhere in the world? The most obedient student. Not only that, the most obedient student is often made the prefect or the monitor of the class. And even in boardrooms, try presenting the idea that our strategy is outdated, we need a new strategy, here's a new one, boards, please approve. What's the first question the board asks? How many companies have already done this? So even boards are more comfortable approving of the following of best practices rather than the creation of next practices. In today's world of speed, followership misconstrued as leadership is not going to work. Who is the leader of America? Name me the person. No, it's not a trick question. Name me the person. The president, right? Who is the leader of China? Similarly, the president, right? Who is the leader of Google? Or Microsoft, or any company, or your company? Who is the leader of your company? Your CEO or your president? I asked about 2 countries, and I asked about your company, and each time you told me it was the most senior person with the maximum authority. And that's the second misconception. Position power is leadership. You look at the likes of Gandhi, Mandela, Martin Luther King. I've covered the whole world. For most of their lives, they had no formal power, no authority, and yet these 3 names were some of the biggest names of leadership in the 20th century. Connection between formal power and leadership? Zero. Zip. Nothing. And finally, this idea that maximum control is leadership is a very, very outdated idea. We need a different view of how to think about leadership. By the way, if you don't believe me, here's what happens in a typical company. Boss is telling subordinates that he wants innovation, right? Now here's what happens when the team, which is all excited, comes up with some really new thinking. You know what I meant by saying followership is confused with leadership? So to understand what is leadership, let's look at what leaders really do. Now if you look at people like these, the question is, what were these people trying to do? Were they just trying to dominate people and markets and make money, or was there more to it than that? Clearly there was more to it than that, right? What these people were trying to do was create a tomorrow that is better than today. And that is the definition of leadership we need to have. Leadership has to be a burning desire in the gut to create a better future. And you don't become a leader when you get promoted. You become a leader when you close your eyes and clearly visualize the better future you want to create. And that's what we need to teach everybody in terms of what leadership is. It is a burning desire to create a better future. But this will remain a very unpopular definition of leadership for a long time to come. Why? Because it's risky. Because the moment you tell people around you, hey, come with me, let's create a better future, what do you get? You get resistance. Active resistance, passive resistance, all kinds of resistance, isn't it? So who wants to have resistance? Therefore, nobody wants to believe this. But that leads to the next question. What is the main ingredient of leadership? What's the difference between a leader and a non-leader? A non-leader gives up in the face of resistance, whereas leaders don't give up. So what do you need tons of in order to not give up? And that's the main ingredient of leadership. It's not a competency model. It's not a title. It's not a position. It's not even emotional intelligence. It's deep, deep, intrinsic energy, a very special kind of energy that you need in order to not give up. So let's complete the definition first. Leadership is about creating a better future, and you do that by harnessing first your own energy and then the energy of the people around you. It's about finding out, where can I find that long-lasting energy? Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years, but he still did not give up his dream of a rainbow nation. Where did that kind of energy come from? Let's take a quick look at that. There are two sources of long-lasting leadership energy. Good news is all of you have the capacity to unleash 27-year-long energy, like Nelson Mandela. The bad news is very few of you will even try. It's a fact. But if you want to, here it is. The first is a very, very deep belief in a set of values that you believe you will never compromise no matter what happens. When Mandela comes out of prison and finally becomes president, what does the majority population of South Africa want him to do? Revenge? An eye for an eye? What does he offer instead? Forgiveness, and reconciliation. The very people that vote for him, he goes against them because the values of forgiveness and reconciliation are so important to him that he will never go. He waited 27 years for his wife and daughter to reunite with them. What did they say when he said that you have to take revenge, you have to do what you have to do? And he said, no, I will only forgive. They left him. He was heartbroken, but he still didn't give up his values. That's the kind of belief in values I'm talking about here, not a peripheral view. Only when you have this deep in your belief in your values will you start to recognize your energy. Because you will get energized at the intersection of your values and day-to-day life. If there is a match, you will get positive energy. If there's a mismatch, you will get negative energy. Start noticing that energy. See what you have the maximum energy for. Make that your life's purpose. And that's the second source of long-lasting leadership energy. Leadership energy made up of a clear and deep belief in values that I'm never able to compromise no matter what happens, and a purpose based on those values that's larger than myself. That is leadership. With the challenges this planet is facing today and the opportunities we all have, either which way, we need this. Inner engineering work of leadership. No competency model, no on-the-surface training is going to make you a leader. Now, there is a problem with this again. If you discover long-lasting leadership energy based on a values-based purpose larger than yourself, you're going to create conflict. People are not going to like your new self because people like status quo. So the question is, should you be autocratic now that you've found a purpose based on your values, or should you try to be a democratic, all-inclusive leader? What I'm raising as a question itself should be frowned upon. What does he mean by autocratic? How can he even dare to say something like this? But in the interest of time, I'd like to go a little fast. We asked people this question in 28 countries. Do you agree or disagree with this statement that a significant amount of top-down autocratic leadership is needed in today's day of speed and connectivity, where everybody has a voice, where consensus is not even possible, right? Because anybody can join every debate. You might be surprised, but 75% of our global respondents, largest study of its kind ever, said agree or strongly agree. Whoa. By the way, without exception. The green bars, you probably can't read, the resolution is not that great, but these are the 28 countries. Every single country returned a minimum of 51% of people who said agree or strongly agree. Data was universal. So now we have a problem. The data says you need to be autocratic, which itself is a bad word, right? What happened to all-inclusive democratic leadership, et cetera, take me along, blah, blah, blah. So we have something called the 21st century leadership dilemma. Data says we live in this kind of a world where everybody is exposed and naked and ordinary people really empowered. How can anybody be autocratic in this environment even if they want to be? Yeah? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm going to just not do justice to this at all. We take days talking about this and sharing this, but anyway, is to be a positive autocrat. And a positive autocrat basically does just one thing. They are better future builders. They have great leadership energy based on the right values and a values-based purpose. So let me talk a little bit about the first two of these keys. The first is you need to earn the right to be autocratic. People have to allow you to be autocratic. Think Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. He ran the country with an iron fist, but people loved him. And they said, if he doesn't want us to chew gum, heck, we won't chew gum. But he's going to take us to a great place. You got to earn the right, because he said they believed him that he is a better future creator, right? Secondly, you have to literally master the dance of the naked autocrat. To do two opposite things at the same time. Be autocratic about your values and your purpose at all times, because you've thought about those values and that purpose very, very slowly, very, very carefully, and it's bigger than yourself. Now don't let people move you away from that. At the same time, have to be compassionate and humble with people at all times. Yes, you got to do both at the same time. That's a new model for leadership. Again, Lee Kuan Yew was very good at this. He would say, if there's a good reason why it is no, it must remain a no, but the ban must be told politely. You lose nothing by being polite. So anyway, I can't go through those five keys because we don't have much time, and I have lots more to share with you. But some questions about personal leadership. Are you simply living, or are you leading your life? And the difference is having leadership energy, a values-based purpose. Are you creating leaders or followers? Have you been misunderstanding leadership all along? And are you a positive autocrat? The key is positive autocrat. Don't get hung up on the negativity on the word autocrat. It's basically being true to your values and purpose at all times, because that's how you create a better future. Only those individuals with a higher purpose will succeed in today's naked world. So here are two takeaways for you. Next time you're interviewing candidates for key jobs, here are two interview questions for you. One, ask them, what is their purpose in life? First of all, most candidates will not even be able to answer this question. That itself will tell you something. Secondly, is there one truth about what is the one truth about your business that most people disagree with you on? I learned this from Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. He loves to ask this question. What is the one truth about your business that most people disagree? If they can answer these two questions, you're looking at a thought leader, you're looking at a better future creator. Make sense so far, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah? All right. I have 4 minutes left, so a little bit on enterprise leadership. Again, like personal sources of leadership energy, there are three in the case of an organization's collective leadership energy. We call them the brains, the bones, and the nerves of the organization. If you're interested in this, my first book, Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders, has a whole section on it, and you can measure culture and many things, etc., very easily, very practically. But anyway, organizations need to move towards purpose. So let's look at what's changing in terms of these three things. Brains is vision, mission, strategy. Bones is organizational architecture. Nerves is culture. Well, how to think about these three things a little bit differently. In terms of brains, the previous panels have already covered it a lot. But the point is this. Today, as consumers, will you buy a product sold by a company that's not 100% honest? No. If you have narrowed the choice to two competing products that you want to buy, one company is known for ESG and ethics and integrity, and the other one is dubious, obviously you'll buy from the other one, right? You'll even pay a premium for this one because you can believe the bumper sticker. So it's not about doing good is not just a nice to have anymore. Only those companies that learn how to make money by doing good are the ones that are going to succeed. So is your business strategy based on doing good, or is CSR a side activity? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Fortune magazine had this research. Companies with the highest scores on ESG continuously outperform the S&P, whereas companies with low scores on ESG underperform the S&P. And this is not even a nice to have anymore. This study highlighted 57 companies that have figured out how to make money by doing good. It's even forcing some companies that have never thought about these things to think about this now. So in the previous panel, when we were talking about the purpose declaration, out of the 181 CEOs, some have signed it just for the sake of signing it. But that's okay. It's the beginning of something. Even those who don't think this way are being forced to start thinking about it, not because it's a nice to have, but because organizations are naked and the market is demanding it. So that's the big change in terms of how we think about business strategy. Let me see what else I can share with you very, very quickly. Okay, on bones and nerves, here's the thing. As I said, 40% of the US workforce is already a free agent. So if you're hiring full-time employees, you're competing with 40% of the people that have full freedom. The question is how to give freedom to full-time employees while still maintaining performance, discipline, and order. The question is not, should we give freedom? You have to. But how to do that while still maintaining order, that's the question. And the answer is freedom within the framework. Now, here's the issue. Every company has a set of values that are posters on the wall, that are on the website, even laminated cards on wallets, right? And then we also have a lot of rules, policies, and procedures, isn't it? The bigger the company, the more rules, the more values. The last panel was about culture. Most organizations manage culture with rules, policies, and procedures. They think that the way to manage culture is to create rules and policies and procedures, because with that you control behavior. And before you know it, there are so many rules, so many procedures, so many policies that you've created a red ocean of bureaucracy. Think about it this way. If a senior management team had 100 units of time and effort to spend between making sure the rules are followed versus making sure people live the values, how do they use their time? When I ask this question in other places all over the world, it's 90-10. 90% of the effort goes towards making sure rules are followed, only 10% making sure that the values are lived. In today's day of speed and total transparency, we need to reverse this. We need to spend all our time making sure people live the values. And that does not happen. Printing beautiful posters, creating employee videos of values, and creating training programs doesn't do it. You've got to link your reward and your measurement systems to this, then only it's going to happen. Because before I break the law, before I break a rule, I break my values. So if you teach me how to live my values, and this is the problem not just with corporate cultures, it's a problem with parenting as well. We teach our children how to be good at STEM. We teach our children how to be great at literature. We tell them to be disciplined and do their classwork really well, etc. But do we do enough to make sure that values-based behavior becomes muscle memory? No, we don't. Neither as parents, nor as school teachers, nor as corporate culture custodians. I met Andy Fastow a couple of years ago, the former CFO of Enron. He just came back after spending 6 years in jail. And he said, for the longest time, we never broke any rules. We broke the principle or the values behind the rules. So rules don't protect anyway. So the point is, what are we doing about creating this kind of freedom? I've run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. I had a few more things to share with you, but let me quickly summarize. I had some more evidence as to how giving freedom will actually increase your stock price, but talk to me over lunch if you're still interested.